The head of Sri Lanka's army has suggested the country was targeted in the Easter Sunday bombings because it had neglected its security in the 10 years since the end of the civil war. Speaking exclusively to the BBC, Lieutenant General Mahesh Sananika urged the public not to make assumptions about the investigation into the attacks that killed more than 250 people. Speaking to the BBC, Secunda Kamani, the army chief also gave details on the suspects' movements around the region and the cell's international links.
They have gone to India, they have travelled to Kashmir, they have come to Bangalore, they have travelled to Kerala state. Those are the information available with us as of now.
And do you know what activities they were doing in Kashmir and in Kerala?
Not exactly, but definitely it has been some part of some sort of a training or to make some more links towards the other organizations outside the country.
From what you've learned so far, does it seem that this was a series of attacks that were plotted and planned locally within Sri Lanka or by figures who are still with the Islamic State group in Syria, who were centrally trying to coordinate this group?
By looking at the pattern of operation and the places that the leadership has travelled, so there has to be some outside involvement of some leadership or instructions.
Before the bombings, there were repeated warnings from the Indian intelligence services about the possibility of an attack, and there were questions as to why the threats weren't taken more seriously.
We had some information and intelligence sharing situations, and military intelligence went on a different direction and the others went different, and there was a gap that everybody could see today.
So who's to blame for this failure to share intelligence, do you think?
This is not a blame game as such, but that the chief of the army is, I believe that everybody who is responsible for intelligence gathering and preparation of these plans and who are responsible for the national security are to be blamed, including the political hierarchies as well.
And why do you think Sri Lanka was targeted?
I could give an answer like this: too much of freedom, too much of peace for last 10 years. People forget what happened for 30 years. And people are enjoying peace and they neglected security.
And now, going forward, can you confidently say to people around the world that Sri Lanka is a safe place for international tourists?
Sri Lanka is a country which fought for 26 years. The cases we faced at that time was more difficult and more terror than what we are facing today. We are deployed on the ground to give confidence to the public and ensure there is no violence or escalation of communal riots in this country. Have trust on the armed forces and the police of this country to bring normalcy as soon as possible.
The head of the Sri Lankan army talking exclusively to Secunda Kamani. Thursday marked 500 years since the death of Leonardo da Vinci. To mark the occasion, the French and Italian presidents